So much for joining me and to share some of your thoughts and experiences. Um, just to give everybody a little bit of background, I was approached a few days ago by a friend who wanted to know if I had any advice for her because her 13-year-old daughter was self-harming. She doesn't really know what to do about it, and she said that that her daughter's receiving help through CAMHS, the child mental health service, and that she's just kind of doing her best with the situation. But I thought it just brought me back to the time when we were going through that experience together, when you were self-harming. And I know that, thankfully, you don't actually remember too much of the detail about it at the moment, do you? And that it's kind of sort of disappeared from your memory, which is probably a wonderful thing to hear for anybody who is going through it right now, who feels like it's all encompassing. Because I'm sure at the time you just thought there was no way out of it.
Absolutely. It felt never ending at the time.
Yeah, absolutely. And a little bit of a disclaimer here. I'm not a mental health professional, and neither are you, Paris. But
Excuse
what
me.
we're doing, sorry. But we are here basically to just give our experiences, share our perspective, and share a bit of hope that it doesn't have to last forever. That the vast majority of people who self-harm go on to recover. I hope I'm right in saying that. I'm assuming I'm right in saying that. I know you know a lot of general information about self-harm, even though you don't remember specifics of what you went through yourself. But yeah, we are doing this to just try and help you, just give you a little bit of support if you are either a parent supporting a child who is self-harming, or a young adult who is self-harming, or if you are somebody who is self-harming yourself and who feels like nobody around you understands you. Perhaps you can point them to this video and say, you know, this is something that we could watch together, or I don't know, that might be a bit uncomfortable for some people, mightn't it? But
Yeah.
we're just making a resource. I'm probably babbling a bit now, but so I'm going to take us both back to the time when I first realised you were self-harming. I don't know if you remember that evening.
Is it in the art museum?
It was.
Yeah.
We were in a gallery, and you were about 13, were you? 13?
Yeah, interesting enough, same age as your friend's daughter.
That's right. Yeah. And I imagine that's quite a common age for this kind of thing to be happening. Am I right?
I would say it's general teens, honestly. I mean, I think it can go even younger, but it's the whole puberty thing makes it a whole lot more common, I think.
Right. Sure. Okay. So the first thing I noticed on you was some what looked like cat scratches on your arms, just tiny little scratches. And when I looked at them, you kind of looked at me like, you know what that is, don't you? And I was clueless. I really didn't know what the hell was going on. I was like, what's that? What have you done?
Did you not know?
I didn't know. Because I tell you what, I had no idea what self-harm was until you started doing it.
Oh.
Because when I was a teenager, I didn't know anybody who was going through it. And I know that self-harm has been going on for forever. However, when I was like growing up in the 80s, nobody around me appeared to be self-harming. And I think probably if anybody was going to have any sort of mental health condition, it probably manifested itself in something like anorexia. That's the thing that tended to be something that showed up. And interestingly, you also went through an anorexic stage yourself, didn't you?
Yeah.
It was all going on at the same time. We were taking you to the doctor to have blood tests and to be weighed while you were going through this period of of severe mental health problems. But I didn't have a clue what was going on. It was a very, very steep learning curve for me. But you assumed that I knew what I was looking at, did you?
Yeah, and I think interesting point about back, when you were my age, self-harm manifested in different ways. I think a big part of it for me was honestly social media and having access to other people's thoughts online. And perhaps the culture when you were my age was seeing people, I mean, was there lots of anorexia at your?
There were cases of it. Yeah, I wouldn't say it was like rife, but there were definitely that seemed to be the only sort of manifestation I saw of it. And people had depression and anxiety, but they also weren't called depression and anxiety. They've just called being a bit fucking weird,
Yeah, and I reckon it is kind of whatever society is perpetuating at the time, I guess, because. Right. Back when I was 13, there was huge online to see pictures of people posting something called thinspo, where they would basically just do these body checks of posting how thin they were and showing, how they could put their fingers around their wrists and how their thighs didn't touch and that sort of thing. I saw so much of that online, and I'm not saying at all to just not go online or stop your kids from going online. It's just to be aware, because that is something that frequently comes up. I see it even now online of young girls finding new things to body check for, Right.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And what about the actual process of self-harming? Do you remember how you first decided that was going to be something you were going to be doing? Do you remember that?
So, weirdly, it actually started, my first experience of it was in primary school. But it wasn't really self-harm. It was something me and my best friend at the time, we'd seen it online and we were like, let's try it. So we went into the bathroom and just tried it. It was really weird. And it was honestly the tiniest little scrap. We didn't even know how to do it. We just got, some ladies' shavers and just tried to do something. Nothing really happened. Okay. It was very, very odd looking back. I was like, what were we thinking? Must have been 9, 10? Whatever age you are in year 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And then, God, I don't even remember. I think it actually started, properly, I guess, around, the age of 13 or whatever, by getting, blades out of pencil sharpeners.
Right. Okay.
I'd take them from school or whatever and do it that way. And I'm not even, I think I was friends with, someone at the time who was going through a really, really rough period, and I knew they were harming, and I guess I kind of got the idea from that. And then when I started to feel more and more down myself, I was like, this seems like a coping method. So I tried it and then I got hooked.
Right. Okay. So it was something that you saw somebody else doing and you just thought, I suppose that's what teenagers do, isn't it? They'll follow their peers.
You're so easily influenced at the time, without even knowing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. And when did do you remember realizing when you got hooked on it? What about it was addictive?
So I don't remember exactly when, but I know why. And it was because it was the only thing I felt like I had control over. I had all these emotions and shitty feelings and frustration, anger, sadness, and seeing other people around me also going through horrible things, even if they were keeping it quiet, just knowing that was all there. It was the one thing that I had control over. It was the one thing that, I chose to do to myself,
right.
out of my own, power.
Okay.
And it really it felt like something, obviously, you know.
Yeah.
And that whole process of cleaning up afterwards, it was just a whole. It was something, I guess, to do. Like, it's strange. Like looking back on it, it's a very weird thing to feel like you have power over, because it does take power over you.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a real kind of like a weird situation to find yourself in, is that you think that this
Yeah,
is the one thing that you can do to help
yeah. And
yourself.
it really gives a big rush as well. Like when you
Okay.
do it, it big like I imagine it'd be kind of like a junkie doing drugs or whatever. That is that rush you get.
Okay. Yeah.
It, it's yeah, it's addictive.
Okay. Okay. Is it? Do you think it's like an adrenaline rush, or is it more than that? Is it?
I think it's adrenaline. I think
Yeah.
it's adrenaline, and also just seeing something happen was
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
So was it a kind of a was it a ritual thing you did? You talk about the cutting and then the cleaning up. Did it feel like a kind of a ritual?
yeah, it did. It did. I don't know what
Okay.
kind of ritual, but it felt like one.
Right. Okay. And you were doing it secretly for how long? Do you remember how long you were doing it secretly for before I got to know about it?
I have no idea.
You
No
don't. You don't.
idea.
Because some people say it's attention seeking. You
Mm,
certainly weren't seeking attention from me at the time, because you were keeping it secret from me.
no.
What would you say to anybody who thinks it's all about attention seeking?
It's very dependent on personal experience. I would say for the majority of people, it's not attention seeking. Maybe for some people it is. I can't really speak for them, but for me it wasn't. It was very much a control thing.
Right.
Yeah, and also on some levels um I think sympathy for my friend who was also going through it,
Okay.
strangely.
Hmm.
But it was never I it was never something I wanted to show to the world.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Okay. I'm just sort of remembering what it was like for me as a parent going through it at that time. Once I knew what was going on, because at first it wasn't too messy, if you know what I mean. It was you making little cuts on yourself. You did it on your arms and on your legs, didn't you?
Yeah.
With blades from pencil sharpeners. Was that mainly your tool of
Yeah.
choice?
Yeah.
Um, and it did progress. You progressively got deeper with your cuts, and they became more messy, because I remember that although you cleaned yourself up, there was mess on the carpet. I was cleaning up blood from the carpet and from your bed sheets as well, because you were kind of, your scars were bleeding at night onto the bed sheets. And I don't actually remember the point at which we went to talk to the doctor about it, but at some point we went for help, didn't we?
I remember it very clearly because there was a point where I cut far too deep for what I was comfortable with.
Right.
And it really scared me. It was a big panic, and I think that's the time we went to the doctor, because I think
Okay.
we need to get it like stitched up, you know.
Right. So it was that time. That was the first time we saw the doctor, was it? As
I
far
think
as I
so.
remember.
That
Yeah.
yeah.
Because even my memory is a little bit cloudy on that. I do
Mm,
remember that time, but I
yeah.
didn't know that was the first time we went to see the doctor about it. But
It might not have been, but that's my most vivid memory of
yeah,
it.
that's the time you remember. That was horribly scary. That point, I remember the look in your eyes. You were just terrified. You were just like,
Mm, yeah,
yeah,
because I think 99% of the time I never cut with like suicide intentions.
okay,
It was always just that control, that feeling, the adrenaline
yeah,
rush. But that
yeah,
time it got far too close.
okay. That got really scary for you.
Yeah.
Because that's another misconception, that self-harm isn't about trying to commit suicide every night,
Mm,
is it?
yeah, it's really not. It's really not. Like, and of course I had so many suicidal thoughts, you know, but
Yeah.
with the cutting there was never a point when I was doing it when I was like, right, this is the time I'm trying to die. That was never, very, very rarely, if ever, a thing.
Yeah. Okay. So that could be a comfort for parents looking in, is that your child isn't necessarily trying to kill themselves. They're just trying to cope with life by using this as like a coping mechanism.
Yeah.
But we were actually advised by the doctor to just make you as safe as possible by giving you all the stuff you needed to clean up and bandage yourself up. And that was, I remember going to Boots. That was a really, really weird experience because we went together, didn't we? And we were choosing first aid kit for your bedroom.
God, that's so weird looking back on it, isn't it?
It is so weird because it's just this horrible thought. We were stood looking at this stuff, and all I wanted to do was to stop you doing it. But here we were preparing you for the fact that you were going to do it again. It was quite sickening, really, as a parent to have to do that with you. Yeah. But I'm just glad that we could talk about it. A lot of people have to go through this alone, don't they?
Yeah, and I would say being able to, get supplies and everything was beneficial in the long run, because who knows, I could have got infections, and because the thing is, you're just telling me to stop doing it and not allowing me to buy those things. I wouldn't have stopped doing it. I would have just continued, and it would have just been messier.
Exactly. And that's what you have to remind yourself of as a parent, that just because you're buying the stuff doesn't mean you're enabling it in any way. It's a bit like taking when you were 15, I hope you don't mind me talking about this, we went to get contraception for you because you said, I need contraception. And as a parent, you could say, I think you're too young. I don't think we should be doing this. But in fact, no, the consequences are worse if you don't go.
It's not going to stop it. It's still going to happen. It'll just be worse.
Yeah, exactly. And knowing that as somebody who got pregnant at 15 myself, I know that it does happen. So I regret it because I love you, brother. but you have to kind of fight this feeling in yourself to feel as if you're enabling something by helping somebody who is self-harming stay as clean and as safe as possible, because no matter what you buy from Boots that day, it's not going to make them do it again if they weren't already going to do it. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
because I remember there was stuff, after I did gradually slow down, even when I was clearing out my bedroom to move out to uni, I think I found old, supplies and stuff that had long since expired because I never used it.
Right. Yeah. Thank goodness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. But you were, I remember also there was a time where you had so many scars all up your arm, or so many like open wounds, I suppose. We had to buy this tubey grip stuff to cover your whole arm because it was so uncomfortable for you at school, wasn't it? With your school clothes on. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
You had to completely cover your arms up in this tubey grip stuff just so you could wear your clothes on top. And that must have been pretty tough for you at the time. I don't know what you remember of that.
Yeah, no, it talking about Israel coming back to me, I remember clothes, like if I didn't have like a pad on the wound, it would stick to my clothes. And showers were really uncomfortable, really stingy. It was uncomfortable, for sure. But
did you ever sort of think to yourself, it hurts, why am I doing this? Did you ever think, did you want to?
Yeah, there was always that sort of like, well, not always, but occasionally I'd be like, all right, that's the last time I'm going to do that. I won't do it again. And then it would happen again.
Right.
And, so, some, like, afterwards there would be that regret, like, oh, for fuck's sake, why did I do that again?
Because there have even been times when you've gone back to it, like, months after your last time, because something had made you almost want to see if it would help again, hadn't it?
Yeah. Well, there was even a couple of cases at uni where I did it, like nowhere near as bad as what, like the end stages of when I did it. Like 7 odd years ago or whatever.
Yeah.
Nowhere near as bad, but just to see if it gave me that same feeling, and it didn't, which in a way was a relief. Because it meant I wasn't going to relapse. But, I just tried just to see, because I was drunk and sad or something, And it happens, but I think these days, the last couple of years, it's never been on my mind.
Right.
It's it's never come up as like a solution,
Sure. Yeah. And that's not to say that all your mental health problems have magically disappeared either, is
God,
it?
no.
Yeah, because you're still dealing with stuff at the moment, aren't you? But you're dealing with it so much better.
Yeah. I do think if I hadn't gone through all that, I don't think I'd be able to cope as well as I do now.
Right.
Okay. I think I learned a lot from it. I understand myself a lot better, and I understand other people who are going through it a lot better. Like, obviously, everyone's experiences are different. I can't truly understand what someone's going through, but I can have a bit, more empathy for their situation, and I can also apply things to myself. I take things in. I learn things a lot better when it comes to dealing with mental health now.
That's good. That's good.
Yeah, it was all part of the experience.
Yeah, exactly. Because it has been a big long ride for you. And just to put it in context, as a family, we've got quite a lot of mental health issues in the family. I've had depression myself, and various other family members have, as well as anxiety. I've had suicidal thoughts myself as well that I had to have therapy for, and I was on antidepressants for a while in my 30s. But we actually took you to CAMHS, and you had some therapy, didn't you?
Yeah.
Yeah. It wasn't a great start to your therapy. To begin with, you found it incredibly difficult. I don't know if you remember those early sessions.
I hated it.
You really hated it, didn't you? It was horrible.
I think because it's weird now, because I don't love talking about it, but I find it very easy to talk about, and I'm a very open book. Like, I will tell you anything about my life, really. But then, like, whilst I was still very open, I found it incredibly draining. Right. It really sucked the life out of me. Like, if I had a therapy appointment, middle of the day, I wouldn't be able to go back to school afterwards.
Right.
It's just too tired.
Yeah. And also, it took a long time to get you to see a therapist, didn't it? Once we were in the system, it took a long time to even get an appointment. And I think at times you felt a bit despondent, thinking that nobody cared. Because you were there, you'd reached out for help, and it took ages to get the help. Yeah.
Because asking for help is hard.
Yeah.
I have massive respect for anyone who decides that it's time to help myself through this, because like, you need professional help when it gets, to that point.
Yeah.
There's nothing exactly you or me could have done,
Sure. And you did a few sessions with your therapist that were disastrous. They made you, like, well, I don't want to say the therapist did a bad job, but it didn't seem to crack it for you. And I remember going back to the GP and saying that you were struggling to get any value from these sessions because you were so upset and you were so down. And I actually asked if you could go on antidepressants. And I know not everybody believes in pills, but I know that when I was going through my therapy, that I couldn't even break through until I'd had some antidepressants just to take the edge off my raw emotions.
Yeah.
And I could feel that could be a help for you. And it was, I think we had to go through a certain avenue to get that, because you were too young to be prescribed them by a GP. We had to go to a psychiatrist for that.
Yeah. I just wanna mention as well that, my therapist, she was lovely. She was a very lovely woman. But oh God, I can barely even remember the sessions. I just remember sitting there and crying, and just not taking anything in, and giving these homeworks that are just more on top of my schoolwork just to deal with my brain. It was,
Yeah.
And I couldn't do those homeworks, because I was in such a low point, and it wasn't until I went on the meds that it gave me the ability to just, and I'm not, the meds weren't a cure-all at all. They just gave me the ability to be able to hear help.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And, you know, that was the right path for you. We're not saying everybody should take antidepressants, but we're just saying that was the right path for you. And it really did help open you up to it, didn't it?
Yeah. And I remember at the time with the psychiatrist, you know, them saying they don't usually prescribe this to people under 18. And if I was sure, and I was like, please, please, just give me something so I can try, because I've, you know, waited so long to get this help, and it wasn't doing anything for me. So
yeah. And some people might be watching this and thinking, I didn't parent you well, because a parent shouldn't be asking for antidepressants for their child who's underage. It's sort of, I might be judged for that, which is fine. People can judge me if they want. I was just going on what I thought was best at the time. And I think any parent must really go with their own feelings about things as well, as much as possible, but keep an open mind about what's going to be useful to your child.
I mean, I know a lot of people who have been through self-harm and stuff, and have come across those parents who don't believe in meds, and those kids were always some of the most fucked up.
Right. Okay.
The ones whose parents didn't believe in depression, didn't believe in meds or anything. Yeah. They really struggled.
I bet they did.
And I felt so horrible for them. And I always felt very lucky that I could talk to my mum, and we've always had that very close bond. And I'm so thankful for that. I don't know how I would have got through it without you.
Oh, that's amazing. But you did all the hard work. You know, you got yourself through that. You were incredible. You were so brave. You didn't give up. You kept going. It was incredibly tough time for you. As a parent, I kind of blamed myself for various things, for your own depression and anxiety. Things like you'd have to deal with me and your dad divorcing a few years earlier, and you always think as a parent you should be doing the best for your child and keeping them safe. And when you feel responsible for something, but for your child's mental health going downhill, that's a really horrible feeling. But it doesn't help to indulge those feelings. You can't keep blaming yourself. You just have to help yourself as much as possible.
Yeah. On the note of the divorce, I think, you know, if there are any other parents out there going through that, I don't think I ever put my depression or any of my sort of feelings towards that towards the divorce. I never felt that way, and maybe some kids do feel that way, like it's their fault, but you know, it's never the kid's fault, really, is it? And I never felt like it was my fault, and I never really felt like it affected me that much, because, you know, my memories of you and Dad mostly were just arguing.
Right.
And then so to see you both happy, you know, separately was great. So it was, yeah, I never really felt like the divorce contributed to any, it never felt like yours or Dad's fault ever.
Great. That's good to hear. That's good to hear. And there's also another thing that I felt I was responsible for, and that was your internet use at the time. Do you remember you had a difficult experience? I don't know if you want to talk about that.
We can talk about it. I don't mind.
Yeah. Well, yeah. How about you explain that? I mean, for me as a parent, I felt I hadn't done my best to keep you safe on the internet, and I felt that was partly contributing towards your mental health problems at the time. So do you want to explain a bit about that?
Yeah, so basically what happened was there was this guy at school, a few years older. I was 12, 13, he was 16, 17. Met him through some mutual friends, and, you know, I got a bit of a crush on him, you know, bad boy, muscly, whatever. And we ended up like talking, Skyping, and he ended up blackmailing me for like sexual images of myself, and of course I was a minor, even more fucked up. And yeah, that went on for about 6 months of just this, sexual blackmailing, and alongside, I think, the self-harm, and eventually we ended up going to the police about it, because my best friend at the time, I spoke to her about it, and she convinced me to talk to you, and that was a very difficult time, I remember, because I felt very much like it was my fault because I had a crush on this guy and I wanted to, make him like me back, because older guy, and yeah, that was rough. And I don't, it's a tough one with the internet controlling, because it's such a huge part of everyone's lives now. And it's not something we've had very long at all in terms of, humankind. So we don't know how to control it. We don't know how to monitor our kids on it without being invasive. That's a really tricky situation, because I feel like if you had told me I couldn't go on the internet and stuff like that, I would have been very unhappy with you.
I think you would have been very unhappy, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You would have been very unhappy.
I would have, probably would have rebelled in some way or another.
Yeah, exactly. But as a mum, I was feeling just powerless, because when you've got your child at home, you feel like home is the safest space for them to be. It's like you worry about them going out into the world, but you think when they're at home, they're safe. And during that time, I just felt like your bedroom was the most dangerous place on earth. It's where all the bad stuff happened.
It really was.
It was really hard to process that in my head. Yeah. And I could have done things like made you sit with me every evening on the sofa, and it's like. Found an outlet somehow, I'm sure, for what you were doing. But I think that the internet problem, am I right in saying that led to social anxiety for you, or is that something that was you were already socially anxious? Because I remember that's something you used to talk about a lot, your social anxiety.
I don't even know, actually. I don't know where that came from.
Okay.
And I don't know if that was it could very well could have been a contributing factor. But
okay.
It's not something I look back on and think, that was the cause. Yeah.
Right. Because I think it would be a good point to commend the school for how they handled you at the time. There was a lovely lady, I think her name was Mrs. Durkee at your school.
Yeah.
She was your kind of coordinator for all the difficult stuff you were going through, and they were incredibly supportive. We went to them and we told them all about the self-harm and all about the stuff that you were dealing with at the school, with this guy, and they took the pressure off you as much as possible, didn't they? They allowed you to excuse yourself from lessons and go and sit somewhere quietly by yourself when you were feeling overwhelmed. Do you remember much about that?
Yeah, I remember I had this little basically get out of jail free card. Which I didn't use that much, but there were times where I would start to feel very panicky in class and stuff. And I would just, ask the teacher quietly, because all my teachers knew, I think, as well. Because
they were very good at talking about it.
There were, I don't think there were ever any instances where I felt like a teacher was trying to, or they didn't believe me, or they were trying to stop me from leaving. There was never any of that. It was always very civil and professionally dealt with. Yeah.
So the other schools could learn a lot from them in terms of being helpful to you.
Yeah.
Because it could have had a really bad effect on your exams and your school life, couldn't it? If you'd continued to feel so much pressure. But I think the fact that they were very supportive actually helped you get through your GCSEs and then onto your A levels and then onto uni.
Yeah.
And I do remember taking you a year early for the uni open days. Do you remember that?
Yeah, I do.
Because we wanted to give you some hope and something to look forward to. Because I think sometimes you just found it all too tough, and you didn't know what the hell you were doing, did you? So we took you around. Was it just De Montfort we took you to, or did we take you to some other uni open days?
I think you did the year early one. I think we just went to De Montfort.
Right. Okay.
And
just to help, because would you like to explain what you do?
Well, I'm a games developer. I work for an indie games company as a environment artist, which is what I've wanted to do for a long time. I mean, not specifically environment artist. I just wanted to do something in games, like something arty in games, and it took me down this path.
Yeah, great. So you kind of had a vision about what you wanted to do, and I think sometimes you felt a bit hopeless about it, didn't you? Because you didn't want to be at school, you didn't want to do your qualifications. It was all hard.
Yeah.
You could hardly imagine yourself getting to uni. But do you remember going there and being inspired?
Yeah, it was incredible. Like, I knew that was the one I wanted to go to. The first year we went there. And it was, to go back to a point about the school. The school did handle it very well, but that didn't change the fact that I hated going to school.
Absolutely, yeah. You really hated.
I despised going to school.
Yeah.
But I still managed to get through and get to uni, so there was a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah, exactly. You did actually miss quite a few school days as well, didn't you? Where you just didn't feel able to do it. Yeah,
I mean. On that point, actually, some of my fondest memories from that time were days where you were just like, fuck it, not go to school today, and we would go for like walks, we'd go visit little villages and stuff, just just go and explore and take our minds off it, you know?
Yes.
I really enjoyed those times.
That's good. Yeah, I love those times as well. And that's another good kind of a tip, isn't it? Is to sometimes you just need to live life in the moment and just take a step back and go, okay, what can we do today to actually enjoy today? What can we do just to spend a bit of time together and just hang out and just forget everything for a little while? Yeah, schools do really want you to believe that they are the be all end all, and that if you miss a day of school, your life is over. I got that vibe a lot. Right. And I'm so glad we took off some days just for my mental health, just for well-being, because they gave me some really positive memories to look back on of that time. And I would thoroughly recommend anyone, like, if you're feeling so desperately down, yourself comes first, not just a couple of lessons you're going to miss out on, because you can catch up. And getting the best grades really isn't the be-all, end-all. I mean, unless you want to be a doctor or something, I guess that's pretty big. But, I remember GCSEs were made out to be a way bigger deal than they were. You know, you can still follow your route in different ways. But in my case, it didn't even matter. I still managed to, get the grades, because honestly, it wasn't as big a deal as they made you think it was, just missing a couple days here and there. Yeah, exactly. It's more important just getting through life at that time, isn't it? Exactly. And if you do end up having to retake a year, so what? If you're in a better space, then it's worth it. Exactly. And another sort of community who were good at dealing with mental health problems was the uni at De Montfort, weren't they? They were used to having people with mental health problems, especially in your area, because creative people were quite often. It's not everyone would agree with that. I think a lot of people who were down at uni weren't necessarily getting the help they needed, and they would very much, blame the uni for it. And I didn't particularly have that experience, so I can't really speak for them. But obviously, it does suck if you feel like you're not getting the help you need. But at the same time, I felt a lot of people were just complaining about feeling really down, but not doing anything about it. Not making use of the resources that were there, because there was the ability to book, therapy appointments and stuff, which at one point I did try towards the end of my third year,
but it was all booked up because so many people like needed it.
Okay.
And funnily, we had a specific like mental health sort of provider just for our course, because our course had such a high concentration of people with issues.
Right. Okay. 'Cause it was full of creatives.
Yeah.
And it is under resourced, isn't it? Mental health.
Absolutely.
Help. Yeah. Yes. But like you say, that you do have to do things to help yourself, and I'm sure that over the years, the tools you've learnt in your CBT and your therapy, you have used over and over again, and you can learn a lot of this stuff yourself off the internet as well, can't you?
Yeah,
there are resources that you can
there are
use.
resources, but it can be, I can understand it would be difficult to get to those resources without knowing what you're doing.
Yeah, there is that. Yeah,
but you know, quick Google search, you'll be able to find it. But if you don't even know you need it, then you know, how are you going to find it?
Yeah, exactly. But the main message is there is help. If you do want to help yourself, that there is stuff out there, and it's available, and you just have to keep asking the right questions, don't you? To keep going, and don't give up on yourself.
Yeah.
Look after yourself in that way. And saying that, your employer now is incredible about your mental health problems as well, isn't it?
Yeah, my boss Chris, he is so lovely about just knowing that life happens, and he completely understands all of his employees. We have our own lives, and sometimes we need a day off or need a couple hours off here and there just to deal with life. He's incredibly lovely. And I'm so grateful to have a nice boss, because it was, growing up, it was something I was scared of, is ending up working for, you know, big corporation that doesn't care about you. So I'm very glad I am where I am. I don't know if I would survive in a big retail company. I could not do that.
Yeah. I know what you mean. It's you can feel like you're swallowed up by things, aren't you? And
huge part of my depression as well was being absolutely shit scared of getting a job and going into the real world. And I remember just thinking to myself, I would rather die than work and get a job.
Right. I remember you saying that. Yeah, it was quite worrying as a parent to hear that. It was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. It was scary for me as well, because I thought this is what society wants. This is what I have to do. I don't have a choice. Like, it's either this or I live on the streets. You know.
Yeah.
So it was scary. But I'm very glad I ended up going down a path that allowed me to reach the job I'm in now.
Yeah, exactly. Do you know what gave you the confidence to actually go and look for a job? Because part of you was like saying, I don't ever want to get a job because I'm just not suited for work. You really did feel that, didn't you? That you weren't suited for it.
Yeah.
What changed in your mind?
Well, going through uni, and going to games industry events and seeing other people, you know, who have had similar experiences to me growing up, you know, mental health issues and being creative, and seeing how happy they were in their jobs. They loved what they did, even if it was tough sometimes, because the games industry can be tough. It made me realize, you know, I don't have to go into one of those mindless corporate jobs. I'm sure I could get a job where I would be happy doing what I do, you know? So, you know, when I was job hunting at uni, I was scared, because, you know, all the times where I tried to work jobs before and just quit after one shift because I had a panic attack because it was so overwhelming. That, you know, obviously that scared me, because I was like, I don't want this to happen again. But then ending up being off a job where I can work from home and have my calm space. Exactly what I needed.
Yeah, you've designed your life to suit you, haven't you?
Yeah.
And I do remember one of your first jobs when you were in sixth form, wasn't it? Was working as a waitress. And I think it was your second shift. I had this phone call from you, and you were like in a cupboard somewhere, and you was like, "Mum, come and get me. I cannot cope."
I was in the food cupboard, crying, panicking my ass off. It's funny looking back on it, but oh my god, I felt so horrible at the time because
you were traumatized by it.
They just chucked me at the deep end. Like it was like, you know, this restaurant/pub thing wasn't even that busy, but no one was telling me what to do. No one was teaching me, and I need thorough instructions. So I just ran away.
Yeah, let's like sneak you out the back, didn't we? And it is funny looking back on it. At the time, it was one of the worst days of your life, wasn't it? It really was. It really was. But at least it told you that a career as like waiting on people wasn't right for you, wasn't it?
Yeah. But I remember at the time as well, and people have even told me this recently, like, oh, you should work in a bar. It'll help your social anxiety. You know, if you force it to go away, it'll go away. And I'm like, I don't want to go through all that bullshit again. All these panic attacks from running away from jobs I hate. I tried it a few times and I hated it.
Exactly. And you know what? That is absolutely key to looking forward. If you're a young person watching this and you're thinking, you know, I should be forcing myself to get over things, there is merit in that sometimes. You know, if it's really going to benefit you to push yourself through and do things, say like if you I don't know what would be a good fear to get yourself over. A fear of flying that might stop you traveling. You know, if there's light at the end of the tunnel for that, then do that. Get some help for it and push yourself through it a bit more. But there are so many opportunities for everybody in the world that you should be following a career and a life path that plays to your strengths and that embraces all the parts of you that are unique to you, and you don't have to be good at.
Well, you know, one thing that really helped prove to myself that, you know, I was getting over my social anxiety was, you know, still doing something that was scary, but I didn't hate, and that was going to EGX. Do you remember the convention? I went, it was 3 days. I went on my own and I just made friends there and just proved myself, you know, I could do stuff alone. And I didn't have to be working a shitty waitress job to do that.
Exactly. You proved it in your own way. And anybody at this would probably think, oh, she looks like a confident young lady.
I am.
You haven't always felt like that, have
God,
you?
No.
And it's absolutely wonderful as a parent to see you blossom into this amazing young woman with real inner confidence now. You do have your wobbles like everybody else. Sometimes you feel like life could be better, but you're always just, you keep going. You always keep going, and I love the fact that you're generous with your knowledge as well, because you're always looking to people with this kind of stuff.
And about the whole, you know, I'm very confident now. Is on the whole point of, I used to be anorexic, hated my body, thought I was the most disgusting thing in the world. And now I am at my biggest, and I've never been happier with like myself. So and I hope that, you know, inspires anyone who might be going through, you know, anorexia, bulimia, because you can feel so horrible at yourself. And then, you know, I look back at pictures of myself like now, and I'm like, I was so tiny. Like, what was I thinking?
Like that.
I know, and I thought having a bit of tummy was the end of the world, and now I'm like double the weight or whatever, and I'm like, fuck it, I don't care.
Exactly, you're rocking it, aren't you?
Yeah. People love my curves. I love my curves.
Yeah, you look amazing. And just going back to the self-harm stuff, how do you feel about your scars now? Because obviously they're going to be with you forever. How do you feel about them?
I don't notice them at all anymore.
No,
they're just a part of my arm. And I remember you used to say to me, like, you know, how are you going to feel when you're older? And, you know, you've got these scars. Does that not worry you? and it's never bothered me. It's never been something I felt like I have to hide. Um, um, they're just a part of me, and if anything, I kind of like them because they're a reminder that I got through
Right.
really, really difficult time. And they're a story as well. You know, if other people see them and they're like, what happened? Then I can tell them, and I don't feel bad about telling people. I don't feel bad that it happened.
Yeah.
And, you know, if they are struggling or they know someone who's struggling and I can offer some advice, then it's worth it to me.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So that's kind of our story, isn't it? The story is, you know, these things happen. They can be incredibly difficult. You can feel like you're never going to get out the other side. But I think one of the things you reminded me of today was the taking time out and not taking everything so seriously all the time, and just lighten the load.
Yeah.
As much as possible. You know, everybody does have to go to school and to go to work and do all that sort of shit. But
Yeah.
don't forget that life is here in the moment for us to enjoy, and you
Yeah.
can enjoy it even if you're going through a tough time.
Yeah. And, you know, you are your number one because, you know, your body is your vessel, and without your vessel, you wouldn't be able to do any of the things ever,
Sure.
you know, that you enjoy or even that you hate. Like, you wouldn't be able to do any of it. So
Yeah.
taking that time out to focus on, and when I say body, I mean your brain as well, you know, just being
Yeah.
kind to yourself.
Absolutely.
Such a huge, important thing.
Yeah. And one final thing, I suppose, is to remember when you're a parent and a young person going through this together, that sometimes it can feel like you're battling each other because you kind of feel
Conflict
like
of interest.
massive conflict of interest. I think it's helpful to remember that it's you against the disease, the mental health issue. It's you're both on a team against it, and just try and sort of frame it that way, that there is this thing that you're both dealing with, but it doesn't have to put you against each other. You just work together.
It was, there were some very difficult times where I would see you cry, and I knew what it was about, and it hurt me very deeply. I felt so guilty and horrible, a bad child. But of course I know it was so difficult for you as well. You know, we both had a really rough time going through that, and sometimes I remember we even just cried together.
Yes.
Just because it was so hard. But
yeah,
I don't think there's any way really around that. It's part of the process. And it was tough, but, you know, I think with that, you know, we have such a strong bond through that, I think. You know, I can tell you about anything now. And I can always rely on you. So, you know, it wasn't like, it was a horrible thing, but really good things came out of it.
Yeah, exactly. And that's a great way to frame it, isn't it? Because you wouldn't be the person you are now unless you've gone through some of those struggles.
Yeah.
And like you say, we both feel really, really huge empathy for anybody who has to deal with this on their own, who doesn't have understanding parents and feels like they can't get any help from anybody. But they're not on their own, are they? There are people around that they can reach out to in various different ways if you really do want to help yourself and make a connection.
Yeah, absolutely.
Great. Well, thank you again. Thank you so much. Is there anything else that you wanted to add or talk about, or do you feel like we've pretty much covered it?
I think we've covered most of it. Yeah, I mean, obviously, if any more questions arise out of this, I'm happy to answer more.
Wonderful. Okay, well, enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much. You too.
Thank you so much for giving your time today. I'm sure that you're going to help a lot of people.
That's okay. I'm always happy to, you know, share my experience. So, yeah.
Wonderful. Cheers.